If you ask indemnity for negligence and indemnity is carved out of the limit of liability, is it worth also carving out negligence claims from limit of liability? I often see both and duplicative. Either way, negligence claims are uncapped. Yeah, this is a tough one. If you just have I indemnify for negligence, that's like saying I indemnify for breach of contract. It's so broad. And generally, most contracts I have won't indemnify for just negligence. I will agree to indemnify negligence as a causation of something. I will agree, and not necessarily negligence, I'll say. I usually push for gross negligence if I'm the one who's going to be the bad actor being negligent. I don't ever want to agree to negligence. And my experience is most contracts don't. Most commercial deals that I've done, very few have negligence as a standard. Most I do includes gross negligence. If you have any bargaining power, get that gross negligence in there instead. It's just a much better approach if you can. Of course, if you're on the other side and you're 100% sure you're the one who's going to be the indemnified party, you want the negligence standard. Why not? Get it broader. But in terms of being carved out, that's really risky. If it's any negligence and it's you're indemnifying for any negligence, and that means any third party suit is going to be covered by indemnity for such a low standard, which is negligence. I would worry a lot about that. In terms of limits of liability, I don't know that I've ever seen that negligence carved out of limits of liability. Maybe this could be one where it's different industries. That's not something that I saw. I would sometimes see willful fraud, misrepresentation once in a while. There's not one rule here, I'll say that. And really, you're just trying to adjust in your client's favor whatever you can. I think when we're talking about limit of liability, you just, at the end of the day, you look at almost like limit of liability and indemnity are one provision. I would think of them that way, especially within the indemnification framework. Don't look at indemnity unless you're also looking at limit of liability and how it applies. Then map out those liabilities and what's covered and what's subject to the cap and make sure it makes sense for this deal. And you have two things to play with. You have the indemnity, you have the limit of liability. You're going to use whatever tools you can to try and make sure that your client's protected.